everyone. My name is Eve Anastasia, and so you want to learn the tarot. Great. You know, when I was growing up, I want to give my age away, but a long time ago, there wasn't anyone around to sit down with and teach me the tarot. So I had to really learn on my own. And I did that, and I want to share that with you and do it for free, because any knowledge that's gained, we should share freely amongst each other, especially if it's going to benefit someone else's growth spiritually. And that's what the tarot are about: spiritual growth and guidance. It's not some parlor trick where you're going to learn the um, winning lottery numbers, although that's probably happened from time to time, but that's not why we're here and reviewing the tarot. I'd like to begin by saying the two decks that I'm going to be using in this series are the Universal Tarot, or the Rider-Waite deck, and the name Rider-Waite comes from the publisher Rider, and the originator of the idea for behind these cards is a gentleman named Arthur E. Waite. We'll get back to him in a moment. And the illustrator or artist of this deck is Pamela Coleman Smith. And again, we'll get back to this deck in a moment. And the other one I'm going to be using here is the Thoth deck by Aleister Crowley. And the illustrator here is Lady Frida Harris. The reason why I'm using these two separate decks here is, one, basically with the, and you have to forgive me, these boxes I kind of dug out. These two decks right here are associated with two gentlemen and women that were part of a order called the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And the Golden Dawn is basically a bunch of people who came together and decided to grow spiritually in understanding and effectiveness through the Tree of Life, or the Kabbalah, as it's called. And many people may associate the Kabbalah with Judaism and the little red string around, you know, their wrist, which would indicate things that are not going to be spoken about here. But what's interesting is that the Kabbalah, or Tree of Life, I've got an illustration right here. It's not a very good one, and I don't think you can see that very well, but there you go. This is the Tree of Life, or the Kabbalah. It consists of 10 emanations of God and 22 paths that connect them. And what's interesting about that is it's numbered from 1 to 10, and the paths that are connecting the 22 are associated with not only the major arcana, which we'll get back to in a second, but the minor arcana. So let's talk about that first, actually, so we have something to dig into. The 22 major arcana cards are basically life paths, and they start with the Fool, and they run concurrently from 0 to 21, and 21 being the world. So they're associated with the Hebrew letters of the Hebrew alphabet. So these 22 paths we'll get to later. We'll talk about the major arcana, how important they are, how we can do readings just with the major arcana. But they are life paths that we are on in life and are associated with our journey here. The minor arcana consists of the 4 elements, which would be, we'll start from earth, water, air, and fire. And they are different suits. So the different suits are associated with magical instruments, if you will, or weapons. So for earth, we're looking at pentacles or shields, right? And then with water, we're going to go ahead and associate that with cups or chalices. And then with air, we're going to associate that with swords or knives. And then finally with fire, you guessed it, I hope, we're dealing with clubs or wands. What's interesting is our regular playing deck of clubs, spades, diamonds, and hearts are directly descendants of our tarot deck. So you'll find people that read with a regular tarot, a regular playing deck of cards, um, and there's no trumps involved, and there are also no pages involved. So if we look at, say, just one element, um, I said from earth, water, air, and then fire. Um, the element of earth would be related to pentacles. So if we're dealing with something like money, monetary gain, or the physical body, that would be in our pentacles. If we're dealing with emotions or some internal epiphany or self-love or something along those lines, or some type of creative endeavor, so to speak, um, we're dealing with cups. We're definitely dealing with cups. And when we're dealing with intellectual things, things about thinking, or, you know, the swords are associated with air. And the way I remember that one is, you take a sword and you throw it through the air. And then, of course, there's the fire. Fire would be associated with the wands, right? So we've got 4 elemental groups here. And how we look at the tree of life, okay? We're going to come back to the tree of life. I'm sorry. I'm going to get a better illustration of this so we can use it in the future. But let's imagine that we have 4 trees, okay? 1 in each element, okay? So if we have this tree and it's in one element, we're going to do earth because that's basically where we are. We have cards numbered from 1 to 10 in each suit or each element or magical weapon, if you will. But what's added here, that's not in a regular playing deck, is a page. We'll get back to what these pages mean later on in the series. But we have court cards, C-O-U-R-T, court cards. The page, the knight, the queen, and the king. That's particularly in this deck, right? But in our Thoth deck, it's a little different. We're going to have princes and princesses instead of the queen and the king. But the reason why I chose, I don't want to bounce around too much, but the reason why I chose the Thoth deck and the Universal Tarot is a wonderful deck. It's a great foundation to learn the tools that we need to move forward with any deck. I have several different decks here. I've got, I don't know, the I Ching, the Oracle of the Tree of Life. I've got just a couple of Celtic mythology, Native American Indians. I mean, you can pick up a deck with kitty cats on it. But we need a foundation to build off of. And once we have a strong foundation with one deck, we can, by all means, just ascend the tree as happily as we can, up and up and up. And it's a never-ending learning journey for us, which is wonderful as spiritual entities here. So I want to get back to these worlds. There's a world called Atziluth, which would deal with the fire and the clubs. There's one of Yetzirah, which is air. And these are all Hebrew words. And then Bria, which would be water. And then we've got Azaya, which is earth. Now, what's interesting about the Tree of Life is not only are we looking at this tree macrocosmically and microcosmically. Let's get this straight here. So when we look from the earth out to space, this is earth here, and we're looking out to space to the first swirlings of the universe, okay? This is a really basic example of the Tree of Life, but I'm glad you can see it because the camera wasn't catching it very well. But getting back to this, we're starting here at Earth, and then we've got the moon, we've got Mercury and Venus, we have the sun, we have Jupiter, and Mars, and then we have Saturn, the astrological zodiac, and then we have Kether, the top one, sphere of energy there, which would be the first swirlings of the universe. So you can see the little sigils or little signs on there that indicate which planetary sign it is. For instance, this one right here is Mars. You know, this one over here is Jupiter. We've got the sun, you know, Mercury and Venus, and then we have the moon and Earth. So not are we looking at it macrocosmically from the Earth out to the universe, but if we were to back into the tree, we have above us this sphere here, which is the name of it is Keter or Kether, and then we have a positive and negative column and a balancing column. So on the positive side, that would be considered masculine or active, and then on the negative side, it would be feminine and it would be passive. And so there's a feminine and masculine energy, and then there's a balancing point in between. So the reason why I'm telling you about these things is because when we back into here, you know, we've got a positive and negative side of our brains. And then we have a more, you know, positive and negative sides of our bodies. And how these balance internally. And then, you know, we've got our solar plexus and our reproductive organs, and then our feet are on the earth. So we fit into this tree as people. So we are, as they say, as above, so below, and this is what they mean. You know, above us is, you know, the sky. It's emanating out into the universe, and we too are part of the universe, but a smaller version of it. And these trees fit into 4 separate worlds, and those worlds each have an element. So it's really important that we think about the elements, and that's why I decided on the Thoth deck. The Thoth deck teaches us that the elements, how they play with each other. So when we read these or we do a layout for these later on, that's what's going to play more into our interpretations, is the interaction of the energies of the elementals together. If they are adverse, like fire and water, right? Fire can boil water to a point where it's steam and it disappears. But then again, water can be thrown on fire and it can be put out completely. So we're going to review the elemental forces a little more deeply when we deal with the Thoth deck. But I'd like to focus absolutely on the Rider-Waite deck. A lot of the reasons being is because of the symbolism that we see in each of these cards. You know, if you look at this card, the Ace of Pentacles, it definitely reads to us that it's earthy. I mean, you can see the mountains in the background. You can see the growth in this, I guess, someone's front yard or villa. And that's the symbolism that kind of rides through these cards here. And then there's a journey with them as well. So we'll talk about the elemental forces and how they deal with each number. So again, if we go back to the tree, if we have this tree sitting in Azaya or Earth or Pentacles, okay, we have numbered 1 through 10. That's going to be our first 10 cards, right? And then I spoke to you briefly about court cards. What's interesting about court cards is we're going to find out later on how much these relate to people's features, their hair color, their eye color, their age, possibly, and things of that nature. So we'll have a really good time with court cards. In the meantime, there's some wonderful books we can read about this stuff. And yeah, we could Google it, but you're going to find a plethora of information about each card from all over the place. I mean, I don't know how you found this YouTube channel, but obviously you did a search or what have you about tarot, and it brought you here. So there's a lot of different information out there. I'd like to just help you obtain the strongest foundation you can in learning and understanding the tarot. So I hope I wasn't too all over the place. Um, some wonderful books I'll leave in the comments that we can review or look at, or some of the ones that I'm going to be adding to this series so that you can understand where my knowledge has come from. Now, I just want to wrap this introduction up real quick with this idea. Um, I've been doing the tarot for over 40 years of my life. Um, they've been a wonderful, constant companion in my life, and I don't know what I would do without them. They have given me such invaluable instruction, guidance, and insight on so many different areas of my life and areas of life for others. And I'm really grateful um, that I found them or they found me. So if you'd like to continue on the series, that's great. We're gonna the next time we see one another is that we're gonna go through one suit at a time, and we're gonna go one card at a time, and it'll give us a better understanding of what these cards mean, and then we're gonna get to the major arcana. But a good place to start would be this minor arcana with the earth, water, air,